resident, and one opening on our HEIC, our Hamilton Environmental Impact Committee, one associate member opening on our Hamilton Council on Aging, and not on our agenda, but we do have an opening on our Hamilton Affordable Housing Trust, which we've already got an application for. And now we have time for public comment for 3 minutes on any topic not already on the agenda. If you're online joining us, please raise your hand. And if you're in person, just come to the podium and state your name, your address, and speak freely.
Name is Duke Seaver, 402 Essex Street, Hamilton, and I've been here since I was a little boy. Now I'm an old boy. I've been trying ever since I've lived here as an adult, to get a sidewalk between Forest Street and School Street on Essex Street. And it shows you how fast the town works, nothing ever happens. And I hate to think of anybody getting hit, but it's bound to happen. So I'm just throwing it out to the people out there, if they can put a little pressure on the town to get it done. Thank you.
Thanks, Duke. I like your persistence, Duke. Seeing nobody else, we'll move on. We have on our, let's see, is Holly with us?
Yep. She's up.
Yeah, I'm
Hi,
here.
Holly. I didn't see you without your name up there. I didn't recognize your face for some reason. We'll start with Holly's update from the Pet and Homestead programming, and then we'll go through our select board member reports. So Holly, if you want to start us off, go right ahead.
Yeah, so the reason actually that I'm requesting time tonight is because I would like special permission for some confirmed public events this summer. There are two specific requests, one of which is asking for specific dates for noise extensions for specific dates, and the other one is requesting permission to hang a banner on the tennis court fence. So the first one is to request, we currently have a quiet hour after 9 p.m. at the Patton Homestead, and I'm requesting extension until 10 p.m. May 26th, July 28th, August 25th for movie nights, and then we would need an extension until 10:30 on June 25th, or excuse me, 23rd. So I wanted to put that one out for any questions or concerns and request permission.
And Holly, I'm sorry if I misheard you, I apologize, but it's 10 o'clock except for one night, it's a 10:30 night, is that correct?
That's correct, yes. Just looking at sunset and the start time for those dates.
Okay.
Currently, I believe currently I believe it's quiet hours starting at 9.
At 9,
out
right.
there, and it's
That's correct, yeah.
And is it our discretion, correct? That-
you
okay.
can
It's at your discretion, yes, and my intention is to share, this news with the neighbors. I have not had any negative feedback from our neighbors from any previous programming at this date, but I would like to be respectful, knowing that it's probably going to be quite loud between the hours of 9 and 10.
Right. And this is the movie nights, correct? Not the,
Movie
okay.
nights.
So it's
Yep,
not like
so
we're
we have
having
4
a beer
confirmed
bash out
movie
there or
nights.
something like that.
It's no alcohol allowed. It's for 1 a month events. So
Okay. Do we want to just put on our consent agenda for our next meeting?
okay.
Anything else, Holly?
Yeah, so I wanted to request permission to have a banner approved. I have 4 dates set in June to do the music series. That would be starting at the beginning of, I'd like to put a banner up starting at the beginning of May. The size, it's the same as the one that we did last spring. The size is 45 by 61 inches. I would do it horizontally this time. And I just wanted to request permission for a banner for those 4 dates.
Okay. And will the banner be the same, or will it be, I can't remember if it will be updated for different,
It's going to be updated, but what I would like to do would have it be a generic banner that I don't have to have made again.
yeah?
So it will be very similar in style, just without specific bands.
Okay,
Well, yeah.
perfect. And we'll put that on the consent agenda for next meeting as well.
Got it.
Okay, great. And that's all I have for you this evening.
I had as well, Holly, I'm sure you're okay with it, but Joe, if we could put that up on our signboard in front of the Public Safety Building when those get closer to happening for the movie nights and the other music nights, that would be good.
Yeah, that would be great.
And social media, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, we do a good job of getting them out on social media, but we can add them to the signboard as well.
All right, any questions for Holly while she's on the line about what she's asked, or any other programming questions? Perfect. That's the way I like it, no questions.
Right, sweet. All right.
Thanks, Holly.
Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening. All right, any selectmen updates? If you got one, shout it out.
There's a ballot thing happening on Thursday.
That's a good thing to announce. If, for the 3 people at home listening, there's a debt exclusion and an election on Thursday, so please show up to the rec center and cast your vote.
Do you want to call out the fact that the turf field question did pass the town meeting both here and in Wenham, but it also requires a debt exclusion vote in both towns in order to pass.
Right.
The town meeting votes only authorize the borrowing, but in order to borrow in excess of Proposition 2.5 limits, you need the approval of the voters as well. So it seems there is a disconnect in some people in the community who think the votes on Saturday sealed the deal. Unless we get a debt exclusion passed, though, that will not be the case. So.
Right, so you got to vote 2 times, and hopefully it's in the affirmative to confirm our town meeting vote, but show up and vote your prerogative either way. Anything else to add?
No, I
Caroline?
would just add to that that the folks who typically show up for non-national elections are not typically the folks that vote in favor of school items. So keep that in mind strategically.
Okay. Tom, anything from you?
I'm just going to give a quick shout out to the Hamilton PD. They've helped me out with a couple of personal items in the recent year, in the last couple of weeks. One being my son falling asleep on the bus and waking up in the bus yard. Yeah. So
So they
and then
found him, that's good.
They found him, yeah. And a couple of items they've helped me out with, and just a very responsive, great group over there. Just want to give a quick shout out. Appreciate all the work you guys do.
Did you ask them about that bird hitting your
No.
window? Maybe they could solve that for you too.
Yeah, I would like them to solve it in a certain way, which I'm not going to say right now. But
With a service weapon?
yes, there's a bird that lives in the tree outside my sunroom window, and just all day long just smashes into it for like a week straight. Just
It wants
non-
something in your house.
Yeah, he sees his reflection. I think it's mating season, so
Yeah.
he thinks he sees a mate.
He's so
and it's
pretty.
him.
You need to put a big
Smash
sticker on your
into it. He
window.
hasn't-
I was going to say, did you think about dirtying up the window so that maybe he wouldn't be able to?
Well, I put a blanket up, and that apparently didn't work. He still smashes into it. I think he's brain damaged at this point.
Which is going to help the situation.
Yeah, so I may request the services of the police department again on that. Yeah, big shout out to the Hamilton PD.
All right. Anybody, anything else? I don't have anything tonight, so. Jamie, did you have something else?
Just a very sincere appreciation for the 3 years, almost, that I've been here, and certainly, certainly everybody associated with, on the governing side, but also the citizen side. So it's been eye-opening, a privilege, tedious at times, but also a lot of humor here and there. So anyway.
Well, thank you, Jamie.
There's
You're
been
gonna be missed,
humor?
Jamie. I hope you still join us.
I've roped him in for some other stuff, so he can't leave just yet. All right, consent agenda tonight. We have a handful of items. We have approved Garden Club annual plant sale banner at the Council on Aging. Approve the request for the You Can Run road race on September 17th, 2023. Approve the use of Patton Park in the community for the community block party on June 24th, 23. And approve the use of Patton Park for Sunday concerts in the park. Can I get a motion to approve those? Or a hold on anything, if anybody has any questions?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. All right, on to our agenda. We have opened the warrant for June 14th, 2023 special town meeting and review our warrant schedule. So in our packets, if I can scroll down to it, we have a warrant schedule, and it is a lot of FinCom and Capcom and et cetera. I gotta look at it sideways here. What I would like to put in there, and we can talk about it, we had slated a June 14th date for town meeting. Joe and I have had some discussions with the planning board chair, and we're, I will say, heavily considering moving the date to a couple weeks later, just at the end of the calendar year, for a handful of reasons. One is that our planning board chair won't be here on the 14th. She'll be out of the country, so it makes it difficult for her to participate. It also gives us a couple more weeks for public meetings and public hearings, I should say, and also gives the planning board a couple more weeks to get accomplished what we're trying to get accomplished. So what was the date we're thinking? Was it the
June, well, so we did check, 2 weeks after the 14th would be the week, 2 weeks would be the 28th, obviously, but we did check that week. The high school auditorium is available either Tuesday night, the 27th, Wednesday night, the 28th, or Thursday night, the 29th. All 3 days are available if the board wants to consider moving it. The big reason to try to get it done before the end of the fiscal year, not calendar year, is that free cash expires at the close of fiscal year on June 30th. Our goal to fund the town hall with the CPC money and free cash would then get delayed until free cash can be recertified, likely not until sometime in the fall. So that's kind of the big, deadline dropper, June 30th. If we want to move and take advantage of, what we think is advantageous pricing right now, and use the free cash that we have certified, we'd have to do it before June 30th.
thoughts?
So what is the proposed date?
The 28th, 29th, or 30th, right?
27th, 28th.
27th, 28th, 29th,
So
sorry.
Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday?
Yeah,
Tuesday, Wednesday,
or Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah.
I can't do Tuesday, I have tennis.
Okay.
Mr. Bowler, do any of those dates preferred for you as the moderator? I hope you don't mind me asking.
No, that's fine. I was going to ask him.
I can make any of those dates. I just put out for consideration, that's, after school is out, we probably won't have a problem getting a quorum, 75, but the legislature did extend the COVID provisions that allow towns to reduce the quorum requirement somewhat, which I don't know off the top of my head the details of them, but that might be something to consider to make sure that we do get a quorum. So, but any of those dates work for me.
Thank you, Bill. If I could offer, given that Tuesday night's not a good night, I would ask you to consider Wednesday, the 28th, because then if for some reason debate ran long and you had to continue it another night, you would still wrap up before Friday.
That was going to be my preference as well.
And you'd have an ability to continue it to a second night, but I wouldn't think that.
Wait, what is the second night thing you're talking about?
We
won't-
towns that have night town meetings often have to continue to a second night, so.
When we've had the weeknight meetings, this is years ago, sometimes it would carry over to a second night.
Got it.
Someone would call the meeting basically at 11 o'clock and say, we're tapped, we're going to start again tomorrow night.
Given that you're considering a very brief agenda, a very brief warrant, I wouldn't think that's likely in any case, but I just raised
It's
it
a
as a
possibility.
possibility.
I have tennis on Thursday too, so I'm just.
Wednesday is perfect, so as long as we're efficient on Wednesday, that will work for Caroline.
Okay, Wednesday's great. I love it.
Does that sound good? So we'll reset that then?
Do you want to have some motion?
Yeah, I'd love a motion to reset the town meeting date from June 14th to June 28th,
Eighth.
Wednesday.
So moved.
And time, before we
Oh,
finish our motion making. What do we have?
we said
Se-
had
6:30. Oh, is it?
I thought we said
I
7.
think we had 7. I think 7's probably good.
Yeah, and people call it at 11, you said, so that gives us 4 hours.
Yeah, that should be plenty of time.
Are there snacks? Oh, you're not allowed to have snacks inside the.
We could do snacks.
Theoretically.
We could,
I think we need to reach out to Five Sons or something and just see if they want to snack us up.
well, but before we start asking for favors like that, I'll analyze what we need in terms of sustenance for that. But,
I need
We'll have
actual
a
sustenance.
pizza party or something.
yeah, we can probably do something. But at 7
Yeah, so 7. So the motion was
Yep.
by
the
Caroline?
28th Wednesday by Caroline at 7 PM at the high school auditorium.
And I'll second it.
And Jamie seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. And so, agenda items, well, I don't know if we need to discuss the calendar at all here, but,
I'm going to have to adjust it.
yeah, it needs to be adjusted now. But if there's any other things that you see when you look at that calendar you think are missing or need another meeting or something, please let Joe or myself know. And then warrant items are, we have 1 or 2 now previously unpaid bills?
We have a couple of unpaid bills of a prior year, which of course came right after we sent the warrant to the printer, so we couldn't make any adjustments. And we have 2, we have likely one town hall renovation article, but I'm saying there might possibly be a second. And then potentially 2 zoning articles for an overlay district. The second one actually relates to the groundwater protection overlay district that also encompasses, so there may need to be a change and modification to that overlay district, as well as the adoption of a new overlay district for development. So I think at this point, it looks like 4.
That's my guess.
But
Anybody else have anything you want to add?
To the warrant?
Yeah. No, perfect.
Okay.
All right, so, one second here.
Now's your chance. Just
So then I guess with that discussion, would anyone like to make a motion to open the warrant for the June 28th, 2023 special town meeting?
Should I do the honors, Jamie?
So moved.
So moved by Jamie, second by Tom. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all right, we've officially opened the warrant. All right, up next, we have a water abatement request for 175 Woodland Mead, and that is in your packets.
Why, do we know why we're approving this? Didn't we give Tim authority to do?
I
thought it
thought
was
we
under.
did, unless it was over a certain amount.
No?
This
it's
is
un-
under
Or was
it's
it
under
anything? It's under
500.
500, right?
Unless it's
Yeah.
gonna be like spanning 2.
no, it's all
Buildings.
in one. That's a good point.
Well, let's,
To be honest with you, in the rush of town meeting, I just pushed it forward when it came down to my desk, and I'll talk to Tim.
so, do we want to just approve it or not approve it? And do we want to just let Tim handle it? Either one, I'm fine with.
I wouldn't want to deny Tim the opportunity.
I think we should stick with our policy and let Tim approve this.
Like that, I like
We
what you're saying
authorize
there,
him to.
Tom.
Exactly.
All right, so we'll let our Department of Public Works Director handle that. We're moving right along now. And now we have annual town meeting review. We had it, it went. That's it, no.
We won some, we lost some.
Comments or questions on what went well, what didn't go well, room for improvement, et cetera? I'll start, kind of, I guess. And I talked to Joe about this, but I'm not sure if the software can handle it. We had about 450 or so, would you say, Mr. Bowler, attendees or so? At the peak?
Most I thought I saw voted was 435.
Yeah, so just about 450, and when we've had less people, it's easier to see the screen for your number. And I could see my number, but I was sitting from here to there from the screen, so I think people in the kind of cheap seats, as they say, couldn't see if their vote was actually clicking, and I asked Joe if it was an option with the software to have kind of half the numbers on one TV, half the numbers on the other TV, so you could split, a couple hundred on one, couple hundred on the other. I don't know if it'd make a big difference, but maybe people could see a little bit more, or project the whole thing on our big screen where we do our slideshows, so you could actually see a bigger version of it. I don't know if that'd be helpful. It'd make people
Yeah.
feel a little more confident that they could see their square turn red or green.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be helpful. I mean, I know I just pressed it like 9 times.
Yeah, that's what I just kept doing.
Just to make sure.
Because sometimes there was a delay between when Mr. Bowler said voting's open to when you could actually, if you were really hot on the button, it didn't quite register
Yeah.
right away.
I mean, that might be helpful. I just had a comment about that, because there was some Facebook discussion about the use of the clickers and versus like the hand raising and such, and the use of secret ballots versus not ballots. Is that a thing, like, that we need?
Well,
Because there was a lot of discussion about, I guess, Wenham had to use the clickers, but also had to raise their hands. And
That was a
Yeah.
Wenham choice?
yeah, so I didn't
Yeah,
know
I
if there
wa-
was like a certain process that we need to follow, and if, you know.
no. And Mr. Bowler can speak to this too, but in my understanding, it's obviously quicker with the clickers than the counting. And it makes it easier for the moderator to just look at the number and know, what was 2/3 and what was 51% or whatever. And I think at Wenham Town Meeting, they actually told them they had to hold the clickers in the air with their votes so the clickers would work better, but that's a bunch of hogwash in my
Yeah, they
mind,
just wanted
because
them to raise their
they just wanted them to raise their hands. In my mind, I figure that we vote in every local and state national election secretly, so why wouldn't town meeting allow you to do the same? Mr. Bowler, do you have a comment on that?
I'm not stating my opinion as personally as moderator, but there is I think a respectable argument that town meeting is a legislative body, and typically legislative bodies like the State House or Congress vote not in secret. In fact, on some things, usually a roll call vote can be demanded. So I think I'm certainly, as moderator, happy with the certainty that goes with the thing. But that's the other side of the argument, that it philosophically takes something away from how town meeting, some people view town meeting, that it should be an open discussion and legislative decision.
Right,
Yeah.
true.
I mean, I think-
I see both sides of it, but,
Yeah, I think the clickers make it more efficient, and I think, at least from the commentary I saw on the Facebook page, it seemed like people were happy with the privacy of voting rather than the hand raising, but,
right, and a handful of people I talked to on Sunday at the lacrosse game that had been to Wenham and Hamilton's town meetings respectively, the folks in Wenham that I talked to, most of them who voted didn't raise their ballot card or their hand and just
Yeah.
used the clicker.
Yeah.
So,
Can I just offer, it's not a rebuttal, but just a different perspective. Mr. Bowles is right, most legislative bodies vote in open.
Open session,
But
right.
they're also representative. So, for instance, in a town that had a representative town meeting,
Right.
residents could feel that there's an obligation of the people voting to show their vote because you're representing me. I'm not getting to vote for myself. In an open town meeting like such as you have in Hamilton, all you have to do to be heard is show up at town meeting and vote.
Right.
You don't need to pick somebody else to vote for you, and therefore, it could be argued, again, not my personal opinion, just offering the different side, that it could be argued that you don't need to pick somebody to vote for you, so therefore you don't need to know what their vote is.
right, that makes sense. If I'm an elected official and I have a constituency that's expecting them to vote yea or nay on something, and they can't see what I'm voting.
yeah, and I think,
It's
I
a bit
looked at
of-
the statute on it too, just to, for my own personal knowledge, and like for a representative town meeting, they would have to vote to approve a secret meeting before they could do
Right.
that. And obviously, we're not representative, but, that makes sense.
I remember we looked at this at the time that we bought this clickers, which is now 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
So, and there wasn't anything that KP Law was able to determine that required us to identify who was voting and how, so.
I had a couple comments that people would have liked to have seen the presentations online beforehand, and I don't know if they were or not. Some of them-
They weren't online beforehand, but, I mean,
They were after, not,
they're on as of today. We don't get all of the, I mean, even though we asked for it, and I.
yeah, it's
actually-
timing, right?
Yeah, it's timing. I had asked for them by Monday prior to STM, or ATM, but I didn't get some of them until Wednesday, even though we had asked for them earlier than that. And you try to be accommodating and make sure people can get their stuff in, and they're trying to make sure that they've got all the typos cleaned up, and they've got all the information in that they want, and it gets a little bit dicey at the end. If the board wants, in the future, once we have it, we can make it live on the website, but that might not be until a day or two beforehand. It was not
Right.
likely to be like very long in advance.
Right. The other comment I had is, and Joe and I spoke briefly about this at the meeting, with our stabilization fund, our transfers and stuff, it's a 2/3 vote, but there has yet to be any controversy with it if we added that to the consent agenda, because typically we don't have much issue with the consent agenda being passed. It's kind of so far, it's been a non-controversial item. And if there probably was controversy, somebody would hold it, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So we could think about, that would be one less thing to take up some time. What do you think?
Does that just mean the consent agenda has to have?
Yeah,
I
yeah, that
think
just
you'd
means
have
the
to have
consent
a
agenda.
separate consent agenda. So that, I think, just in terms of the practicality of it,
Because of the 2/3?
yeah. I mean, I think you could put, if there were more than 2/3, more than one article on,
Yeah.
with requiring 2/3, you could put them on a consent agenda if they fit. But I think putting them all together would be a little awkward, I'll say.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. As far as timing, things went fairly quickly, even though it was a long meeting. I think the bulk of it was in our beginning, our presentations.
Yeah.
Our consultant went, I think, 15 or so minutes past
That was
what I'd
excessive.
asked him to do.
That was
But, it was very thorough, but, some people were lost, some people were really engaged in it. So it was kind of, I heard both sides. I heard people say, oh, I kind of lost track of what he was saying after a while, and other people said, well, thank you for that. So I got kind of both sides of the coin for that, so I can't really say he went too long and it was a train wreck, or he didn't go long enough. It kind of got both.
I don't think it was a train wreck, but.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a train wreck, but I
A
think,
little lengthy.
maybe a little, it's tough to know how much detail to go into. I know we kept it pretty high, but I think he could have done a little less elaborating on some things. But,
Well, it seems like I don't want to overprocess things, but it seems like there could be like a template or a guideline for like how you approach reports or readouts in
Yeah.
a town meeting. Like, what are you there for? What is the thing you want people to know, and what is the thing you want them to do, and what is the information they need to do it? Because that upfront part felt very excessive to me, especially for a group of people who probably are not highly engaged in that process and didn't walk away from there knowing what they were supposed to do with that information. And so it was kind of like I wanted like we are here because this has happened, this is the information you need, and this is why you're going to need it, and this is when you're going to need it. And it was like,
a little more explanation on
yeah.
why it's there and what are next steps.
I would recommend rather than using a stopwatch on your phone, but like a clock, a 3-minute timer.
We do have those.
We
We had
have
issue, we have a
Something
clock
I
that wasn't
thought.
working.
Is that what
Yeah,
it
I
was?
want a new clock. I mean, it was
I
a
was gonna
little
say,
bit,
because, yeah. I
it was
knew
a
we
little
had-
bit, I'm not a juggler, and it was a little bit of,
Yeah. So I think we did a good
but
job. of keeping
that
it
was
3
because
minutes, but-
the timer didn't work. So
right,
it was
so
planned to have a person there.
Right, we actually had somebody there to run it, and then
Yeah.
we couldn't.
So-
get
Usually have a student run it, right, or some volunteer.
So if you can find new clock in the budget.
All right.
Be visible
We'll
to
get you a new
the
clock.
people speaking. So
Usually is.
I'll have a new clock before STM, trust me.
Yeah, and if I remember right, it's like that digital clock that's like this big, right?
Yeah, and if it's visible, yeah, they can see it. So when they're
We
up there,
can
they
put it
know
up
I got a
on
minute
the
left.
stage
I
or the
gotta-
podium or something like that. All right, so new clock. The other thing, speaking of the reports, and my my better half has made this suggestion a few times to me, that she would think in that some point before town meeting, maybe there's just a meeting that's a public forum to, kind of like what you two do with the wine and warrant thing, but the reports are also included in that. Not that you guys would do that, but that we would have some type of a meeting
I think Caroline would be great.
that would be, the reports would be shared, and then the warrant could be, at least briefed about before town meeting. But that's food for thought.
And my sense is some towns do that.
I think some towns do that. They have kind of a public hearing for the reports, and so we might consider something like that, because that would cut our meeting a little bit shorter too, because that was, I don't know, we did 45 minutes, almost an hour, I think, of reports in the beginning stuff.
Yeah.
So that would cut an hour out of the actual meeting, and that would all be taken care of beforehand. And if people didn't go to that, they could always access it online, but would have to adjust the schedule. Like Joe said, some people don't turn stuff in a timely manner, so we'd have to push that back a little bit more.
I have a question for those more experienced. And I want to preface this by saying, like, I think human nature is that people wait until the 11th hour to engage in a thing, right? So the field folks did an exceptional job, as best they could have done, trying to get people to engage in the conversation beforehand. But what I saw as a particular problem with the field vote was people were having a hard time picking apart the plan itself from the budget, from the materials.
Yes.
And it was almost like they needed us to phase a vote on the plan, what was the scope of the project, and then after the scope was approved, what is the budget for that project, and so forth. And I know that's impossible, I'm not saying it, but it makes me very, very anxious for the school building project, because this is the exact same thing on a much larger scale, which is that there's going to be people, I can see it when we get to the mass school building thing, saying, well, why does it have to be 100 million? Why couldn't it be 50? Why do they have to do this big? Why can't we keep the school that we have and go with this school? And I'm like, so how do you get ahead of that and help people understand, like, this is the building and this is why we're doing it, and then this is the money it's gonna take? Because, and I think the thing passed, but the number of people who said, I'm not showing up to town meeting because I don't wanna say no, but I hate the idea of turf, or I don't wanna say no, but I don't like the scope of the project, so I'm just not coming, I'm not voting. And it's like, how do you make sure that people are engaged on all facets, and so they're not voting on multiple things at once? Or maybe you don't, maybe that's not the process, but I think there were a lot of people who just felt like they didn't have a choice or a say in the project at that point.
I just think this goes to our overall problem with engagement in general.
Yeah.
Because I see this in, working here, I see it at the state level, I see it no matter what, is that you're right. It's like no one, as much as you try and engage with people and have meetings and put material out, people don't necessarily always engage until that 11th hour, till the night before, when they're like, whoa, $15 million, what is this all about? And then it's, people are all riled up about it and trying to get information quickly. But, I mean, I guess you have to just keep doing what we've been doing. I mean, I think they did a great job by having meetings and getting people involved, but I think, just continuing to do that and hope you're gonna get people to engage with you. But that's, I think, the biggest problem.
I agree with Tom. I think engagement's the biggest problem, and to try I think even, Caroline, if you set a schedule where you did something with the scope and then something with the budget and then the materials or whatever, I think you'd still have the same situation. I think you'd still have people come in after or at the last minute
Yeah.
to, question, well, why is it like this? And say, well, did you go to any of the meetings over the last 10 years, kind of thing?
So one thing we did, which was probably one of the, proposals that we had the most engagement on, because I think a lot of people have this fear of coming to this building and engaging in person, or, going to a public meeting. But I feel like people are very willing to engage when they're behind a phone or a screen or a tablet or something, and on, social media, whatever. But we used a software at one point where it has a barcode, and you scan the barcode, and then you can actually have specific questions, or you can have a poll question, or you can have survey questions, or multiple choice, whatever. And then it all gets tracked in somewhere. So you could put barcodes up around town and be like, oh, if you're interested in the athletic fields project, scan here, and people can engage from their house and like, on their phone and answer questions and have like type boxes or have multiple choice or whatever it may be. And it was like, I think Poll Everywhere was one of the softwares that we used or something like that. But that way, at least I feel like if people are sitting at Crosby's and they're, looking at bread and they go, oh, I see a barcode in the athletic fields, $15 million project, scan here. Like, I feel like people are more likely to do that than come here and talk to us.
Maybe we could beta test that with this overlay district and planning board
We could,
meetings or something.
and even with I know that the Master Plan Steering Committee is going to be using QR codes to get further community engagement, so similar to a barcode, a QR code,
Yeah.
use your phone, scan it, and then answer the survey. And that is an easier way to get people do everything on this
Yeah.
nowadays. So if you have a way for them to do that, that could be helpful. And I'm on the feasibility study committee for the new school, so I'll bring that idea back. I think I won't say who, because I'm not sure it's public information yet, but the subcommittee to identify an OPM just completed their work and made a recommendation. So the full feasibility study committee should be voting on that shortly, and assigning, assuming the MSBA signs off, we'll have an OPM, and we'll be starting the next phase, which is designer selection, so.
And to back up a little bit, we were talking about the reports in the beginning. I heard from a handful of people, not a ton of people, but enough people came up to me, and it was like 10 or 5 of 9, and I looked out to see, because we didn't have a ton of people in the meeting yet, and I looked out, and I thought, well, hopefully there's a line outside, and there really wasn't anybody coming in. We delayed the start of the meeting almost 20 minutes, and I heard from a handful of people that they don't show up on time because they know it's about an hour before we actually start the voting process. So the reports and all the other stuff. So they just don't come for the first half hour, 45 minutes of the meeting.
Yeah.
So, I think that kind of preview night would help alleviate that, so people know if the meeting starts at 9, we're gonna start voting at like 9:05,
Yeah.
or maybe we just start the meeting and just say, sorry you weren't here, you should have came on time. I don't know.
And make
Would it
the
be-
big agenda item the absolute last agenda.
Would it make sense to start the meeting at 8:30, and you have reports run from 8:30 to 9? And then, that's more than enough time. There'll be people that will get there and check in early and listen to the reports, others that won't, but you just have a
Yeah,
hard
maybe
stop at
maybe
9
that's another
a.m.
option. You have, the actual town meeting starts at 9, but the reports go from 8:30 to 9.
Just tell
or
everybody,
something.
yeah,
Right.
reports 8:30 to 9, you have it on the agenda. It reports of town committees from 8:30 to 9. The business of the meeting starts at 9 a.m.
Promptly.
I mean, most of us are there by 8:30 anyway, so it's
Right.
not going to be a hardship on us, so.
No.
I think that's a personal opinion.
I've been doing this now here in this town for 5 years, and every time I'm there, you guys are there, so I'm assuming that that's,
What do you think about that, Mr. Boulder? A prompt start and something like that? Because there are a handful of people that don't show up in the beginning because
I
they know
agree.
there's...
I mean, actually, someone commented to me afterwards, I didn't use the word briefly as much as I had threatened. But I certainly like to move things along. My preference would be to, start with the preliminaries. I wanted to start right at 9 o'clock, and I'd had a little discussion with town clerk, who said, well, people are still checking in, and I get that. It's sort of a balancing,
Right.
I told her, I said, well, let me know when we have a quorum, and I'm going to get started on the preliminaries. But, the preliminaries, they're pro forma, but they're part of the meeting, and they're important that people know the ground rules. So,
Right.
Maybe they could be be cut back a little bit, but
Right.
there are certain things that just seems to be, rather than just posting them, I think have to be made part of the record.
Right.
so, I thought it would be like, if you start the meeting, if you call the meeting to order at 8:30, and we allow reports, and then you do the pro formas, this is how you use the
Yeah.
clickers,
Yeah.
we've identified people to count if we need them, you could do that after the reports. I mean,
think
you're
that's a
still,
good idea.
and then we could work with KP Law on the script and try and trim that out a little bit, make it a little shorter.
Mm-hmm.
that could save you some time and still get you started on, you
I think
know.
that's a
Yeah,
good idea.
that's fine by me, as long as there isn't, it's the check-in, as long as it's people, I wasn't out there, but I guess things were kind of, as hard as they were working, things were kind of stacked up, so,
If if you don't mind me, adding to kind of the list here, we had asked, there were several people that asked to have materials available at town meeting. Mr. Bowler was very helpful in approving a lot of those. We had specifically directed everybody that wanted to have materials that they should have somebody from their board, committee, department, whatever, on hand to help with the distribution of those materials, and only one department did.
Yeah.
Another one did send somebody afterwards, but that was, that we did not have the amount of participation as we had asked for. Had there been somebody there to be able to hand them to people, instead we had a situation where there's a line of people waiting to
get
every person to
yeah.
take one of 8 different documents and walk in. If we'd had 4 or 5 people there handing them out, I think things would have gone a lot more smoothly.
So maybe we encourage the moderator and the town manager.
maybe if, for items, I did, put the items related to the warrant on one separate table. Maybe since you could put them all in one packet and just have a stack of packets.
Either that or, if you want a handout, you have to hand it out,
No tables.
You
right?
should have to
Right.
bring a snack to hand out with your pamphlet.
Yeah.
Bag of chips.
Well.
All right, anything else?
Yeah, I'll just, if I may, just say, I'm sure you all have read about the Southborough case.
Gonna mention
And, certainly in my moderators Google group, there'd been a lot of, angst and discussion about that, does this affect town meeting and whatnot?
Bill, if you could just, for people that might not know at home or folks here, just briefly say what,
Well, there was a case that involving the Southborough Select Board, and they had a written policy on a public comment section, and they had policies on civility and what could be said and not making personal attacks and that sort of thing. And a citizen challenged the policy, and it went to the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts, which ruled that under the Massachusetts Constitution, not the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, but under the Mass Constitution, that that was this policy was an impermissible break on free speech. And, the case, well, it made the front page of the New York Times, so, it was kind of a big deal. And there's been a lot of discussion about whether it applies to town meeting or not. And I think that's still, I've heard different opinions, I think. But what I wanted to say was that, there was certainly angst, but I think, Hamiltonians should be pretty proud of themselves. This was obviously, the Fields issue was a heated issue, with a lot of strong feelings, but, there were no, there were no personal attacks, and it was kept on a high level. I don't know, maybe it was the foam sword, but,
that could have been.
that was comedy gold. I couldn't let, it was
I think-
there in
I think
right
you're-
there in the dais.
I think your moment with the sword in David Wanger's
Yeah.
comment
So-
really stole the show.
But I think the townspeople should be pleased with themselves, the way they behaved.
Yeah, everyone was civil. Every once in a while, we have a few incidents, but this one went really smoothly. All right, anything else, town meeting-wise? Do we have anything else under new business?
There was just one thing under new business. After the agenda was posted last week, I had discussed with Sean, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council has
That's right.
made us aware that our seat on the council is vacant, and it asked for us to appoint someone to fill that. This had come forward a couple years ago, and I made the offer then, but for various reasons, some people didn't want me to.
Yep.
So I'll make the offer again. We're still vacant on the council, and they'd like us to have a representative. I have served in that role, and when I was in my previous position in Winthrop, on behalf of the town, I'm happy to do it again if you want. At the time, I think you were going to try to find a volunteer, but I don't
Yeah.
think anybody's come forward at
What
this
was the
time.
council? I missed it.
Metropolitan Area Planning Council.
The MAPC. So in the past, just a bit of historical perspective, I don't think we've had anybody in the seat since Joe started. Our previous town manager was that liaison. And then for some reason, the body politic after that time was a little different dynamic, and they felt that they didn't want the TM in that role, but I'm fine with it, since Joe's worked with MAPC quite a bit, and our previous TM was that liaison, so I would be okay with that if anybody wants to make a motion to allow Joe to be the MAPC representative liaison.
So moved.
All right,
Yeah,
discussion, Caroline?
I was just wondering, like,
What
does
is
the
it?
body have any power?
No, it's,
Advisory?
it's advisory. It keeps you in touch with what other municipalities are doing. They sometimes ask us to join on to various things where we write letters to the legislature to ask them to support things or vote against things. And, you know, I have the ability to sign on or not based on what I think the town wants. And if it's something that's really contentious, I bring it to you before I moved in that direction. But it more keeps us in connection with what other municipalities are doing. It's a little bit of, you know, best practices sharing and things like that, and, you know, ideas and, so.
I assume you have no nefarious plans to
I
attach our
have
names to any
no-
untoward doings?
No nefarious plans at all.
All right, so we have a second. We had some discussion. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye, the ayes have it.
Passes, thank you. I will not let you down.
And should we not sign this then?
Yeah, that's a cemetery deed.
Nope, that's
So
the
that's-
abatement.
Oh, that's the abatement? Oh, okay. Yeah, no, don't sign this. You guys, I'll sign it. I'll talk to
Okay.
Tim, and Tim and I will sign it. Sorry about
Is
that.
there anything else in there?
No, this was
Okay.
just a supporting document for the,
Right.
abatement, so.
And so then that pretty much concludes our meeting, but before we do adjourn, I would like to say thank you very much to Mr. Knudsen for his years of service here and his continued service as I'm roping him in to be on the Hamilton Affordable Housing Trust again. A little gift for you from us. You probably needed it more when you were on the board, but now you can watch us on HW Cam.
Apple juice.
And,
That's a good one,
and
too.
have a sip or two of it and think of us. But just from all of us, and anybody can chime in, it's for me, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the board. Very level-headed and thoughtful, and we're going to miss you. We really appreciate your commitment to the town.
What is it, honey?
It's, yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
It's honey.
It's a big-
It's a
big bottle
jar
of
of
honey.
honey for those folks at home.
Good eyes there,
Very
dude. Good job.
We'll finally be able to get a word in edgewise now that you're
Yes,
leaving.
yeah, now Jamie won't suck the air out of the room with his constant talking.
Well, Jamie, you were one of the first people that I spoke with when I was contemplating my run for select board, and you gave me the rundown. So I appreciate all the advice you've given me over the last year, and I can dedicate, not dedicate, but I am in this role because of you. So that may be a good thing or not, I don't know.
I am also in this role because of you, so,
No.
no. Were we not sitting in the
You
same
have your own
living room?
free will, right?
We will miss
That
you.
was very honest.
And Mr. Knudsen, if you want to make the last motion for us.
I move that we adjourn.
All right, second by anybody?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye, the ayes have it. Thank you for joining us online, folks. And thanks, Duke, for joining us as always. And that's it, we're adjourned.
End of an era.
End of an era.